Welcome back, everyone. This is part 2 of our discussion with Apolonia Rockwell and Drew Hinton, and in this conversation, we're going to talk about safety training requirements. It is important to understand who can train and what training needs to happen, and at the end of the day, what it means for you and your safety program. Let's get started. Hey, welcome back to the Safety Pro Roundtable podcast. I'm so excited. Two of my favorite humans in the safety industry, because, I have kids, so I can't really say you're my two favorite humans, but you're my two favorite humans in the safety industry, Apolonia Rockwell and Drew Hinton. If you want to take a moment to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and then I've got so many questions for you.
Yay! Drew, take it away. You go first.
Ladies first.
Deal. All right. Well, Apolonia Rockwell. I'm the owner of True Safety Services. We're out of Greeley, Colorado. We've been in business for a little over 8 years now, and we do a lot of training and a lot of consulting, mainly on the OSHA side of things. That's a little bit about us.
And I'm Drew Hinton. I'm the president and CEO of Aero Safety. We're out of Glasgow, Kentucky. South Central Kentucky area, and we kind of same boat as Apolonia. We do consulting, training, audits, inspections, kind of travel across the country. So we, Apolonia and I are across the country, but we do a lot of the similar tasks.
Well, I want to brag on you both because I'll start with Apolonia. You have received recently the Forbes 30 Under 30. And that is, what a huge honor, what an awesome opportunity. So I want to congratulate you, and we are just not worthy of having you on this podcast.
No, I am appreciative to be talking to you two gems. No, yeah, I'm hailing to you two gems. Holy smokes. It's been a whirlwind. Didn't sleep last night. I have a 3-month-old, so that's where I'm at. And a toddler and a 2-year-old. So life is just that. Any parent can relate to what I just said. I know Drew can, because both of you, but yeah.
Yes, and Drew, I saw recently that I know you've been working on your PhD. You have, I won't speak. I know it's you have been studying cannabis, and you're writing your dissertation or something right now, and it was published. I mean, how awesome is that?
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Tell us more.
Yeah, it's so part of it's publishing 3 articles in peer-reviewed journals. So my first one got published 2 days ago, and then the second and third will come out in the next issue. So on the final stretch.
Yes. Well, and we've been talking about this for years. I remember last year, you were really working hard on this. So I'm proud of you. It's been
ready to be done. So now it's just the defense side. So go in front of a panel and plead my case, more or less. Yes.
So so proud of you, Drew. This is really, really cool. And so both of you, really, really cool things. So we're going to talk today about trainer qualifications. I mean, there's a lot out there. There's a lot for people to pick from. There's a lot. And, we've talked on a previous episode about the differences and the yeses and the nos between virtual training, online training, and in-person training. So does it matter in terms of those 3 things what the trainer qualifications are, or is it all across the board?
So I'll kind of go off of that. So it kind of really depends on what the outcome of it. What are you looking to use that training for, right? So there are certain topics that are, that you're going to need, subject matter topic and very specific on a certain area. Whereas others, you're going to get maybe a competent person training, to be a competent person. And then there are other trainings that you have to be a competent person in order to conduct that. So ultimately, it kind of ends in it. The deciding factor is, what do you want that training to give you? Are you just checking the box for an OSHA compliance or DOT or whatever it is, or are you looking to get something specific? You may need to narrow it down. I'm sure Apolonia can probably provide some more input on that too.
No, that's exactly, I think you worded it perfectly, is what is the end result that you're hoping for, right? And We talked about this a little bit on our last podcast, all of us three together, it is scary. Like, I see it now from the student standpoint, or for just people that aren't really familiar in the safety world. It is scary going out and looking for online training because you're not sure like who's qualified to teach what. And it's scary in the sense that we just had a client call us up the other week, and they said, "Hey, are you guys legit? Can you guys really teach SafeLand online? Because we've been sending people through this guy who's offering SafeLand training online, and he's not we never got our cards, he's not a certified instructor." And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is kind of what we were talking about is, I guess I was naive in thinking people aren't scamming online. People aren't pretending to be instructors and they're really not. And it's like, yes, they actually are. Dang it. So I would definitely advise. And Drew, I'm sure you've seen it too, clients that have come to you that, maybe they've tested some online training and maybe they didn't have the best experience, or they're just trying to figure out what training am I allowed to take online. I'm sure you get a lot of those questions.
Yeah, I think the big word that you said is tested, because a lot of these things, a lot of the online trainings like that, you're kind of the cookie cutter ones, not that you go online to find out. You don't really get an agenda, so you really pay for it not knowing, as far as the details of what you're going to get out of it until after the fact. And hey, we just wasted 30 hours or 40 hours, whatever it is, doing an online class, and we didn't really learn anything, or it didn't give us what we wanted. Or like you said, Apolonia, the trainer was not legit. Thankfully OSHA has, a website where you can, like, as far as like the OSHA outreach trainers, you can check that stuff, but not every other topic has that.
So what can somebody do, I guess, as they're looking for someone? Like, so if I'm looking, how do I know that somebody's legit or not? Is there some kind of certification that they can give me? Are you saying that I should ask for an agenda ahead of time? Like,
I like the road that you were going down there, Drew, of maybe we could give the listeners some advice as far as like OSHA 10 and 30. Like, if you're looking for an OSHA outreach instructor, do you know the landing page exactly? This is how I have always searched it. Is you go on OSHA's website and you type in outreach instructors, or you can find them that way. And then as far as the online, who's authorized to train OSHA 10 and 30 online, it has that list of people. And so there's a lot of resellers of content. So you just ask that reseller, hey, who is your OSHA 10 and 30 class from? Like, who's the creator of this class? And then you tell them, and if their name isn't on that approved list, then don't take training from them, because it's not approved. You won't get an OSHA card. So
and that's important. Yeah,
that's kind of what Apolonia. That's what you and I were talking about, because I was trying to find some of our customers to say, we don't really want to have the time to spend 2 straight days or whatever it is for an OSHA 10 or 4 for an OSHA 30 in class. Is there an online person? And I was kind of talking with Apolonia about who they were affiliated with. So, like she said, you can go online and find out, but that's just for the outreach training. That's specific to OSHA 10 and OSHA 30. So it doesn't cover other topics. Mm-hmm. Now, like, what some customers request of me, if it's a very specific topic, if they'll want to, especially if they're getting a lot of bids they're kind of opening it up to multiple consultants or trainers, they'll want us to send qualifications. So if it's me doing the training, here's my CSP, here's, if it's hazmat, here's my background in hazmat, here's my training that I've done personally, taken, going out to Pueblo, Colorado and taking the classes out at CERTC, things like that. But also I'll send them an agenda to show them what is covered, because that's one thing that I, from a trainer standpoint, if something does come back on me and they want to say, well, you didn't cover this. Yeah, this is what our agenda that we cover. But it also gives them a sense of knowing what they're paying for beforehand, rather than, like I said, getting into it and wasting, maybe it's 2 hours you waste, you're still wasting it, but maybe it's a 40-hour HAZWOPER class. That's an entire week that you just threw down a drain, thousands of dollars, and you didn't get what you wanted out of it.
I think that's great advice, is ask for the agenda, no matter what online training that you're looking for. Ask for the agenda, see what the outcome is, see if you're getting, like, what are the deliverables, what kind of card are you getting, and then also just always verifying that your OSHA 10 and 30 online is from an authorized provider, because I feel like that's a big one that people, like, they just don't know to ask those questions. So I think that's really important before you waste your time and money. Yeah.
I took my OSHA 30 last year, maybe 18 months ago, online. Mm-hmm. Took me about 65 hours to get that thing.
Yep.
I was like,
yeah.
I thought it was 30, and like, what is? I'm like weeks, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, what is?
You're like, did I get a degree? You're like, am I associates? What's happened to me?
Yes, and I felt so like I had so much shame about it. I was like, I was like, why is it? And then my coworker the other day, she just got her OSHA 30, and she was like, oh my God, I'm not even going to tell you how long it took me. And I was like, thank God I'm not the only one that this is happening to.
No, but those are considerations. I mean, I've even sent some employees that, prior to doing consulting, sent some employees through that. And, from a company standpoint, you're going to have to pay them for those extra hours. It's an OSHA 30, but you may have to pay them for 40 hours, whatever it takes, right?
It took
forever. Yeah. But even the in-person classes still don't, it's just 30 contact hours. So it's going to go 40 hours usually. If you do 4 10-hour days or whatever it is, not including all your breaks, it's still going to be over 30 hours. But it does make it feel like forever if you're doing it.
But you know what? Kind of going off of our last show, if you guys didn't listen to that, go back and listen. But maybe that's something to consider. That's actually a great point. When you're maybe figuring out for yourself or for your employees, should I do online or in person? That's actually a really good piece of advice is, yes, you could absolutely take an online class. There's benefits. You get to pause and stop and go and around your schedule, but maybe consider that for the average person, it is going to maybe take around 50 plus hours, because it's not, it's new information. It's brand new for somebody that's not in the field. And so, maybe that's something to consider. If you take it online, it might take a lot longer, and then you're paying your employees for that time too. So.
Oh yeah, our director of IT took it because it's really important for Sospes that everyone gets this, which I think is really great. Right?
That is cool. Yeah.
It took him months. Like he was like. Because, for his standpoint, he would go for like a couple of hours and then, move on to his, to whatever coding that he was doing. Months. We all were like, are you going to finish this?
Anytime. But I get it. Like it's foreign language, like all these acronyms and these concepts. It is not, that's the IT guy. Like he doesn't know off the bat what these things all mean. So it's going to take some time then, so yeah, if you're considering online or in person for your team, maybe evaluate, all right, how many safety classes has this team, have my employees had? And if it's something maybe newer, if this is everyone's first round of OSHA 10 or 30, maybe it is best to just throw everyone in person so we could ask questions with an instructor and then get it done quicker. But Drew's right. It is just 30 contact hours, but between the conversation, it could still be longer, but, versus months.
Like the way we talk, God, it could take a week. It could take a week longer. Because I can just talk and talk and talk. I would think that as somebody purchasing training, I know we're talking about qualifications, but I think that there's another conversation around asking them how the information is delivered. Okay, so yes, you are qualified, you have everything that you need. How is this information delivered? I think that's important. Are you just, because some is probably more engaging than others?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are naturally dry topics. I'll be the first to admit that.
I agree.
I love hazmat, but especially when I get into DOT hazmat, and if it's or a refresher for just shipping departments, and they're more or less just going through learning how to fill out shipping papers, that's a pretty dry topic, and it's something I enjoy. And they're like, oh my gosh. But with my agenda, I'll tell them it fluctuates, and I keep my trainings dynamic. If we get going in a good flow on something, we'll spend more time on that and then catch up on whatever the other topics are later. but I'll kind of try to break it down, 7 to 9, we're going to do classroom on this. 9 to 11, we're going to do practicals, and I'm going to show them how to do this. And then afternoon, we're going to do all hands on or whatever it may be to give them a general idea. And then, that kind of helps them plan it out. If they need to get resources, especially if you're doing like a forklift or an aerial lift training, hey, we need to go, we're going to be tied up this morning doing a job, but it'll be free this afternoon for you to use during training. And so we can help, cater that.
Do you have anything else, Apolonia?
Yeah, I mean, we are doing, primarily we're using Zoom, right? If we're going to do a virtual live class, we'll jump on Zoom. But, I mean, almost any topic we're going to have to meet. I mean, not every topic, but for the most part, like a scenario, an activity, it's needed, like the job specific stuff. And so here's another thing too, is even if your class is online, maybe find, and if it's a live class, see if your instructor won't chat with you before the class. This is just something that we've always done. If it's like a new client and we're teaching something that is live virtual, we'll always get with that client to see what the scope of work is. How many employees does that company have? We'll just kind of get some information about the company. And that's always been standard practice for us. I know it's standard practice for Drew's company, but maybe it's not standard practice for all training providers. But if I was the recipient, I would want my instructor to know something about my company before we just waste a whole bunch of time talking about, XYZ that just doesn't apply to you guys. So that'd be something, is just always making it as specific as possible.
Right. So you're saying that, there needs to be some sort of discovery process, kind of like, who am I talking to? And yeah, that's really good. Is the person that you're contacting to train, are they asking me the right questions? Are they getting to know my company so that way they can tailor this information? That's so important. You're right. Yeah.
And like Drew said too, I mean, but it doesn't mean that you're still not going to have to go through all the required topics in a HAZWOPER class or all the required topics in an OSHA 10 or 30 class. But if Drew knows something about the company, if he knows their scope of work, I mean, that class is going to be a night and day difference if there is, like you said, a discovery process. So definitely, when you're investing in training, if you're listening to this, I mean, yeah, try to meet with your instructor first and see if you can get on the same page before the class.
This is really great. Go ahead.
I say that may give also an instructor, outside of us, like if a company's evaluated an instructor and they're talking with them beforehand, that may give them a chance to say, you know what, I'm not qualified to do this. This looks like it's outside my scope, or, I thought I could do it. I can't, but I'll refer you to somebody else. And so, if you give them a specifics, rather than just saying, hey, we need a HAZWOPER class or a forklift class or a bloodborne pathogen class, and then you get into it and I can teach a bloodborne pathogen class, but if I'm going to teach it to a research lab that deals with viruses and all kinds of stuff, that may be outside of somebody else's scope, and send it to another more qualified trainer. So like I said, it's kind of goes both ways. We're evaluating them and they're more or less evaluating themselves to see if they can actually do it or not. I don't know if they'll actually admit to it or not, but that's beside the point.
No, that is such great advice. I would be if we were to give advice, Drew, to somebody who's listening, a safety professional for a company who's, outsourcing their classes, this is word of advice. If you are contacting a training provider and they're telling you yes for everything underneath the sun, just that could be okay, because they maybe do have instructors that are qualified in every single topic. That could be the case, but you're right. A great instructor will be vetting the client and saying, maybe we can't. I mean, how many trainings has your team turned down, Drew? How many trainings have we turned down? Because maybe exactly like you said, it was a topic that we trained, but the way that they needed it was out of our scope. Well, let's refer you to another professional. But I mean, your instructor should turn down training if needed. I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, that's just
important.
Relational red flags. If somebody's always saying yes to you, that ain't good.
That's a red flag. Yeah, that's a red flag. Red flag.
Red flag.
Well, Jim Carrey, yes, man. Yep.
Exactly. Well, and I think this is really good. This is just about communication, and maybe the person that's seeking out training gets really, really clear about what they want. It's like, what do you want? And then ask for that. And then the person on the other end needs to be honest that if that's within their scope or if they can provide that. Some people may want really hands-on. Some people may not care. They have specific ideas of what they want. But I think it's good for everybody to get really clear about what they want and what they expect and what they can provide.
Yeah, because if you're a safety professional for a company, you're outsourcing your training. I mean, you'll want for the benefit of your employees too. They don't want to go through a class then they took the class and then they're telling you as a safety director, like, hey, that class sucked. Instructor knew nothing about our company. They talked about completely left field topics that don't apply to us. So, just want to let you know that was a complete waste of time and money. So,
Or even worse, they tell you that they were correcting the instructor most of the time.
I've had that. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I shared this on the last podcast, but I'm sure all of us have our horror stories. But when I was a safety director for an oil and gas construction company here in Colorado, I was just like new to the company, and the person before me had always used this training provider for Spanish Safeland. So I just kept in the same routine, like didn't change it until one of the guys, he was more bilingual, and I said, "Hey, like how's the Spanish Safeland? Like I'm just curious, how is that?" And he was like, the instructor doesn't speak Spanish, and I was like, what do you mean that you just took a Spanish thief? What do you mean? And he's like, yeah, like she just speaks English and she just like reads off the Spanish PowerPoint. And my jaw hit the ground, and I was like, this is robbery. Is that a word? We have been robbed. Something has happened. I said, no, like this instructor is not taking people's money doing it made my stomach just go into knots. It was so sad because I was like, the guys were robbed of who took the class, and it was a big deal. But and going off of what you said, Drew, is I've had that too, where employees are like, yeah, the instructor didn't know anything about anything, so we had to tell him how to teach us. So have you had that with clients that went to other training providers and then finally found you?
Yeah, well, I had a customer in Louisville they were part of a OSHA investigation. They had a fatality almost 4 years ago now. And so they were dealing with part of that litigation was getting arc flash training. And so we were tied up. So they went and got another training provider. And then they were talking to us about it. And they were asking us questions. Hey, is this what it really is? Do you have to have a buddy system? This, and this. And I was like, some of those things are best practices, but nowhere in OSHA or in FPA 7E for that matter. The questions they were asking said they're not true. And he was saying that they were, but that's what he was saying was our employees are telling them, no, this is not how it happens. This is not how it is. And so you don't want to find that out afterwards, like you said, after the fact. But we talked about OSHA 10 and 30 earlier, and especially when you get into the time constraints, because that's one thing that adds to it. I don't deal with it, but I don't know if you've dealt with it at Apolonia, is like the bilingual classes. Because if you throw like an OSHA 10 and you go into it and you're using a translator, now it turns into an OSHA 20. But they specifically say that person translating has to be familiar with like safety terminology, jargon. It can't just be anybody that speaks Spanish. It has to be somebody specific that knows kind of the terminology, the lingo, that's kind of the jargon that we use in the safety industry. And so, I mean, that, like I said, that adds to that. Now OSHA 10 is now a minimum of OSHA 20. That's going to throw a big factor into it as well.
No, that's a good point. I'm not a big fan of the translator deal. I know that in pinches, companies are really like they genuinely can't find a Spanish-speaking HAZWOPER trainer, a Spanish-speaking first aid instructor. Like I get that there's been those scenarios where it's just impossible to find somebody. But if you're a safety professional listening, like absolutely know that OSHA 10 now is an OSHA 20. I mean, the best thing you could do though is to find a bilingual instructor who's certified. You can have conversations about the topic, offhand, And I think that's such a big deal. I agree with you.
Oh, I like that a lot. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess wrapping up this conversation, I know we talked a lot about tips, and then, so I will put a link to that, the part on the website for the OSHA website that you said that people can actually go to. And is it the person's name that we're looking for, or the company?
The name. It's because it follows you wherever you go.
Okay. So each individual gets a certification to be a trainer, and then that makes sense.
We can help you find that link, and then the link to see who's an actual online authorized provider to provide an OSHA 10 and 30 class.
Thanks, froze up. Online provider. Thanks for what you're getting at. Yeah.
I mean, at least she's making a cute face.
there
you
goes.
go. You were frozen.
Dang it.
You were frozen.
I was like, please let this not be happening again.
Yeah, you're like this.
That could be the.
You're shocked.
That can be the thumbnail for this class.
Yes. Oh,
absolutely. Looking shocked.
It's like don't let red flags happen.
Red flags of instructors.
Yes.
Oh
okay, so we'll post those links, and then I think this has been really helpful. I mean, what great ideas. I mean, there's so much to think about, but at the end of it, just asking a lot of questions and getting really clear about what you want and the expectations, and just asking a lot of questions. And if you're not getting the answers that you're looking for, then maybe that's not the place for you.
Maybe
That's right.
Red flag. I want to wrap up saying one thing going off of what Drew said. I know you were talking about a previous client that had maybe gone through an OSHA investigation because of a fatality. And guys, the reason why we're having this conversation is, first and foremost, we want employees that are going through training to get the tools that can help save their lives. Okay, that's like first and foremost. But the second reason why we're talking about this is exactly what Drew said. Like, sure, companies can skate by and take, cookie cutter online training, have a cookie cutter instructor that just comes in and covers the basics. You could get by like that. But the big picture here is, gosh forbid, like knock on wood, your company does go through an OSHA investigation, your company is cited, and you're having to provide documentation of your training. This is why it's important to go through an authorized provider, somebody who has trained the trainer qualifications, or someone who's competent, because I've assisted companies that have gone through this before, where OSHA is tearing apart all of your training records. They're looking at your agenda, like Drew mentioned. They're looking at the topics covered. They're looking at the rosters, the scenarios. They're looking at everything about that training. And so if you're an instructor listening and you're thinking, oh, should I just train even though I'm not certified? Like, should I just go ahead and do this class? Like, think about that. Is that, gosh forbid, there be an investigation and your name is on there, or you're the safety professional who sent your employees through a trainer who, wasn't certified. So, I mean, that's
is that
like
real?
awful.
I mean, is that really happening?
It's really I didn't think so either. I mean, like years ago, like first getting in the oil and gas industry, I'd always heard you could buy a Safeland card for like $200. But now PEC, you can put in like your first and last name and last four of your social to verify if you received the training through an authorized provider like we are. And so many people came to us in the beginning, maybe like 5 years ago, and they were like, Apolonia, we sent 50 employees, 100 employees through with this guy. And turns out once the database came out to see if you're certified or not, like nobody got their certification. So I'm sure Drew's seen it too. People that have come to him and they thought that they went through legit training and it wasn't.
Yeah, or even worse, like it's probably about a year or so ago on Instagram, somebody forwarded me an Instagram page that you could purchase ASP and CSP certifications. Like you could, which is kind of, depending on your industry, it's one of the, obviously one of the top safety certifications to get from a safety professional. You can go on there and legit buy forged, fake ASP and CSP certifications for these companies. So, myself and another person turned them in or reported to Instagram as, fraud, all that stuff. But I mean, it's out there. I don't know if anybody ever actually bought it or not, but still the fact that could be floating around.
That's crazy. I mean, you just like to think that none of this is happening. No one's really making fake OSHA 10 cards, right? No one's really getting their fake CSP card or certification, right? And it's like, unfortunately, you do have to verify what you're receiving. So it sucks you have to do that, but it's better safe than sorry.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. It is
Stacey
always
frozen,
such
or
a
is that
pleasure to have both of you on here. Apolonia Rockwell, the Forbes 30 Under 30, and the amazing Drew Hinton, PhD. Is it called PhD candidate? Is that what they call you? Yeah, I'm not going to call you Dr. Drew, but
I'm a candidate now. So candidates, once you're done with the classes and all you have left is to defend it. So now it is. Hopefully for about another month.
okay. You guys are amazing. So happy to have you on here. Such a wealth of knowledge. And I guess we're going to have to do this again. I mean, this is like the highlight of, my week.
We know we made you laugh. Like, I don't know if it was my face that froze or if it was one of Drew's jokes. Like, I don't know, but I know we made you laugh at some point. So, listen. So, follow us.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you. See you again.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Safety Pro Roundtable. If you're ready to see your safety program thrive by incorporating some easy-to-use safety software, we'd love to connect further. Head to sospes.com/podcast to learn more about how our top-notch EHS software can make your job easier, safer, and your company more profitable. Again, that is sospes.com/podcast, or you can find the link in the show notes of this episode. We will see you soon.